Okay, so we want to have a look at the chord diagrams. So they consist of 6 vertical lines, and each one of those lines represents a string on the guitar. So the first string, the thinnest string, is the line on the furthest right, and the thickest string, the 6th string, is the string furthest to the left, the vertical line furthest to the left. The horizontal lines, they represent our frets, our metal bars here. And then we have circles that represent the fingers. So the chord that we looked at in the last lesson, E minor, that will be represented with those 2 dots, as you'll see appearing on the screen here, in that particular place. And that will show us that we have to put our fingers, as we've learned previously, in that position. So that's your chord, E minor. Most of the time, the word minor is abbreviated to just the M. So you will see it written as capital E with a lowercase m. Now it is important that we still call this chord E minor. Calling it EM or M will not be understood by other musicians. So it is very important that we still call it E minor, even though it is most commonly written as capital E and a lowercase m. So the next chord we want to have a look at, you see appearing on the screen here, and that's a D6/9. Now this has quite a complicated name, but for the moment we don't have to worry about that, and we might just abbreviate the name down to D6 just for handiness sake for the moment. So have a look at that chord diagram and see if you can figure out where to put your fingers. So I hope you've figured that out now, and I'll show you exactly where to put your fingers. So you can see it's quite similar to the previous chord, the E minor. We still have both our fingers in the 2nd fret, but this time we have first finger on the 6th string, and then we have our 2nd finger on the 3rd string, like so. Again, it's not possible to get that first finger all the way over to the fret, but we can get this one nice and close to the fret, and that's what we have to do. Nice and close to the fret, and then this one as close as possible. Still paying attention to all what we spoke about earlier, so that your forearm, your wrist, is as straight as possible. These knuckles are bent, palm is away from the guitar, and you have a little bit of clearance here with your first finger. If your thumb might move, that's perfectly fine if it needs to change position for the different chord, as it will. So as we change chords, your thumb will move around a little bit, perfectly fine. It doesn't have to be stuck in one position. Now, so once we have our fingers in position, then we can press in a little bit, and we have our D6/9 chord. Again, make sure that you check each string individually, that there's no rattles, buzzes, or any kind of dead notes that we might hear. Now, this chord, what we want to be able to do is to change from that to the previous one, E minor. And that's what I'd like you to practice for me. So you start off with either chord, it doesn't matter. So we'll start off with the D6, since that's the one we're doing in this lesson. And we're going to change back to E minor. And if you just have a look at what I'm doing here with my left hand fingers, I would like you to have your fingers in place. You don't have to press in hard. Try to lift your fingers off the strings at the same time. Get them into position for the next chord and place them on the next chord at the same time. And this little exercise, so moving your fingers at the same time, going from one chord to the next, without putting too much pressure on your fingers, this is a really good exercise. So for all the chords that we're going to learn during this course, I'd like you to do this first of all. It helps your fingers to move together, it helps your brain to coordinate what's going on, make sure that everything is going the way it should be. Also, it means you don't have to put down too much pressure. You can still practice without actually hurting your fingers. So if your fingers are sore, this is a really good exercise. You can still be practicing away without hurting your fingers, having to press in on the strings. Now, we need to do it slowly first of all. Try to get everything correct, and then we can try to speed it up. Okay, so not too difficult. Also, just to mention at this point, if you prefer, it's possible to use fingers 2 and 3 for both of these chords. We're still playing the same notes, it won't affect the sound of the chord, still at the same chord. So it just depends on which fingers you favour. As we'll see in some other songs, whatever fingers you decide to use will depend maybe on what the next chord is or what the previous chord was. So we'll have a look at that as we're going along. I'm going to use fingers 1 and 2 anyway for the moment. Okay, once we're happy with that and we're able to move our fingers nice and easily from one chord to the next, that's what we're going to try to do next. We're going to strum and we're going to move chords. Okay, so we want to do 4 downward strums on E minor, and then we're going to change and move to the D6 chord and do 4 strums for that. Again, 4 downward strums, and then we'll change back to E minor again, another 4 strums, and so on. We keep moving between those 2 chords, 4 strums each. I'm going to count to 4 so we can both start at the same time. And after count to 4, we start again on 1. So each beat will be a strum. I'll show you first of all. So we have 2, 3, 4, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then change chords. 1, 2, 3, 4, back to E minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then change chords again. 1, 2, 3, 4, back to E minor. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we'll go through that again, just in case you weren't ready. So I'll count to 4, and on the next beat, we start together, and each beat we strum downwards. 4 for E minor, and then change into the D6 and 4 for that one. So when you're ready, after 4, 2, 3, 4, E minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, change to D6. 1, 2, 3, back to E minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, then change to D6. 1, 2, 3, back to E minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, D6. 1, 2, 3, 4, back to E minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll leave it there just for the moment. Okay. So when you're practicing, remember to sometimes look at your fingers, make sure they are doing the right thing. Remember to check all those points we were talking about earlier on, your wrist, your knuckle, your thumb, keeping that clearance with your first finger, pressing in with the tips of your fingers as well. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is to practice changing between those 2 chords for a little bit. Make sure that you can change between them without any difficulty whatsoever. And then when you're happy with that, we'll move on to the next lesson.